It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Thursday, July 18th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that's wondering who's the next candidate for the Flyers Hall of Fame.
I was wondering that.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on Twitter at rmiriam. I'm here with Russ Cohen, who's on all your favorite social media apps at Sportsology. We are at Locked On Flyers on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky as well. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. This summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a booster bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone all day, all summer long. Visit fanduel.com/locked on to get started. You can find us over on YouTube or on the SiriusXM app or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Subscribe to get our latest episode as soon as it's available here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Russ, we have been talking about this past season. We did kind of a year into the new era of Orange episode and how that was going. One of the things we talked about that we really liked was how they kind of brought in the old and the new together. They brought back some of the traditions that may have been lost over the years. And one of them is bringing back the Flyers Hall of Fame. And they had gone 3 years without inducting anybody into the Flyers Hall of Fame. In 2021, they had Paul Holmgren and Rick Tocchet. And then obviously with 2020, like they couldn't do anything, but they didn't bring that back until this past season when Mark Recchi was added to the Flyers Hall of Fame. And so now that that tradition has been rekindled and they're considering it, of course, we're thinking who's next on the list. And
Right.
I think, you got to think about it in terms of who's next and not who's the most deserving, because we know who the most deserving is, and we're going to talk about him in the next segment but in Claude Giroux. But I think next on the list has to be Jakub Voracek, right?
He's one of them. He's definitely worthy of going in. He's ranked 10th in points. He's 5th in assists and 8th in power play points. So, he's had an impact on the organization. Is he the next one, or are they going to have two the next time? If they're having two, I put him in right away. Because
I think
that's what I think
just
matters.
Simply because he's he's recently retired. So he's no longer in the game. So you can do these kinds of things for him. And he's not like jersey retirement level player, but he is definitely Flyers Hall of Fame caliber player. And I think this goes along with, bringing some of the more recent retirees into the fold, into the organization to be sort of ambassadors. And I know Jake's a wild card in terms of his personality, but that's what we love about him, honestly, is that you never know what you're going to get with him. We love, his banter with the media. We love everything about him, as an individual and as a representative of the Flyers. And so I just feel like it's a no-brainer.
It is a no-brainer. He's just number 2 on my list. But if there's 2 that go in, then I'd say put him in right away.
Yeah, he also, his best season was 2014-15. Obviously, 81 points, was in the All-Star game that year. He got some Lady Bing votes that year too, which is wild to me to think about Jakub Voracek in a Lady Bing conversation.
That is funny
there. But I think one of the other clues that maybe he's on this, at least a short list for the
definitely
Flyers
on the list. There's no question about that.
Yeah, he was around the press box and around the Flyers a little bit this past season.
Yeah, the Stadium Series, we saw him outside the locker room.
Yeah, and with this Stadium Series, obviously that was one of the best memories we have with Jakub Voracek. Was scoring one of the last minute goals in order to force the overtime in 2019 for the Flyers to finally win one of these suckers. And that was a good day for me personally. And I think that, he just has made an indelible mark here. And you look at his career, and, obviously it was split with Columbus,
Hmm.
but he spent 10 years of his 15-year career here. And I think that just, he is a flyer. Like, you think of Jake
Oh
Voracek,
yeah,
in
yeah,
my
no
opinion,
question.
you think of him as a flyer, right?
Yeah, no question. I think that's obvious.
And I think, in terms of, other stats that potentially stand out here for him, I just really think that you look at what he was able to do with his assists over his
Hmm.
career. We talked a little bit about how much he's led, been on the all-time list for the Flyers, but 427 assists in 10 years. Like, if you average that out over the 10 years, like, that is a lot of assists per year, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Of contributing. And I think that's the thing about Voracek that I love so much, is that he's going to take the shot himself, but he's also going to dish it off. Like, I
Yes.
just feel like he's a complete offensive player.
Yeah, no question. I mean, again, really a great player. Uh, yeah, he's gonna get in. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about, what it might look like, and what, how do the Flyers approach that? And because I feel like he would have to have a standalone night, even if they have more than one. I just feel like that he needs his
Yeah, they
own
could do
night.
it that way, but I mean, I mean, you could do it a host of different ways. But yeah, they could separate it. And hey, this one's getting into Flyers Hall of Fame this day. This one's getting in that day. Sure. Even though it's the same year, they probably won't. They're probably just going to pick one. And if they just picked one, I would be like, all right, next year, Jake.
Yeah, and we will get to who your other
I got to watch saying that though.
suggestion.
That's my dog's name, and if he gets up, he's going to start
Oh,
causing a ruckus.
love that, by the way. Love that. And I think, the other thing is, you look at his style of play, and he's not like a super hitty guy. He was for like a year in Columbus, right?
Right.
But
Right.
like, not so much with the Flyers. He's definitely like a skill guy. And
He's a skill
maybe that's
guy.
that's why he got some Lady Bing votes, because he
Right.
wasn't really a guy that was going to throw himself
He would
around.
trash talk, like if that
Oh yeah.
counted. He trash talked
Oh yeah.
all over the place, but he was more of a skill guy and more of a playmaker. That those are, his attributes, and he was really good at it. I mean, for a long time.
Yeah. And the other thing I would say is that, he got the vast majority of his shots through for a good portion of his career. They were like, his accuracy was generally very good, and he would
Hmm.
pull some, really crazy angle shots every now
Hmm.
and again. I think that is a lot of fun. And like, part of me wonders, like, of course you want to ask what if he didn't have the concussion issues. But and you also think, well, what if with the Cam Atkinson trade? Because honestly, at the time, it felt like a good trade for both teams, right? But it just like didn't really turn out for either one.
No, but it worked out better for the Flyers. Voracek really didn't do anything for Columbus at that point, and that was just due to bad luck. Atkinson at least had the 1 year. So, but yeah, I mean, it didn't really work out in the end, but that was the way that trade was going to go. It was just like you were hoping to get a little bit of an edge. The Flyers did get a little bit of an edge.
Yeah, and I think that's only kind of the little bitter pill in all of this,
Yeah,
is
sure.
that the Flyers, like, really felt like they had to trade him at that point, because things were changing with the organization, and I get it, and it
And he
makes
was
total
pretty grumpy
sense.
at the time. I think he needed a change. I do.
Yeah, yeah, I think things were just not going his way
No.
for his career on the
If you
Flyers.
remember his
And
post games, especially during like the pandemic and stuff, he was grumpy.
yeah, that time did not, like, serve him well, I
No.
will say. But I think at the end of the day, he's just a Flyers guy, a
Yeah,
Flyers
yeah.
kind of player. and I loved him on this team. I love everything about him, and I am looking forward to the day where they have this ceremony. I'm looking forward to them having to bleep it because I
Oh
think
yeah,
that'll
gonna have to
happen.
have it on delay. There's no
Just
question
have
about it.
that finger on the button
Oh
ready to
yeah,
hit,
no question.
hit beep. But I like honestly, we deserve nothing less than that.
Yeah, I
So
mean, it's gonna happen. It's just a matter of when.
yeah. All right. We are going to talk about Claude Giroux, who is the other obvious choice, but Drew's still playing. So we got to wait a little bit for that one. And we will talk about Claude coming up next. We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. One of the things I love about Indeed is it makes hiring all in one place so easy because you can avoid all that busy work. I use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with those candidates faster. And 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences. So the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Listeners of Locked On Flyers will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/locked on. Just go to Indeed.com/locked on right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on Locked On Flyers. That's Indeed.com/locked on. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. So, on tomorrow's show, we are going to look at the early stages of the World Junior Summer Showcase. Some of the teams have put their invitees out there. So, we're going to talk about the Flyers prospects that are on those lists. Plus, we've got your poll results on your favorite Flyers player who then jumped over into broadcasting. Very excited to see what the final results are there as well. The Flyers' former captain, Claude Giroux, could not say enough good things about him. Exactly 1,000 games with the Flyers. As we know, we had that cheerful goodbye slash ceremony honoring him. That was like the weirdest, best, worst day, I think.
Yeah. I mean, he's just
just
it's one of those things. It's odd, but it happens in every organization.
Yeah, I know. It's just wild that it happened literally right after his 1,000th game. And,
Yeah.
just like everybody knew it was like a combination, celebration and funeral all at once.
Yeah, I remember that day.
And, but I think that, it's just obvious. Like Claude Giroux is going to be talked about as a candidate, I think, for the Hockey Hall of Fame down
hmm
the road. I don't know that he's a lock, but he's definitely going to be in those
He'll be in the
conversations.
conversation. I know Joe Pavelski just retired. Pavelski is just ahead of him for, I think I looked up guys last 20 years in points leaders. And so that's a good thing. He won a World Junior Gold for Canada. That always
Mhm.
helps. So yeah, I mean, so far he's only been to one cup. Pavelski's got a little edge on him because he had been to two. So if he gets to another cup, I don't know if he can get there with Ottawa, to be honest. But if he did,
Yeah.
that could really, ice it for him. Or with another team if they end up trading him, because he's probably got a few more years left, but he's probably not leaving Ottawa.
I don't think so. But yeah, I think that'll depend, I think, on if he can win a cup and just bump a few of those stats up, like you were saying, by the end of his career. But certainly he's going to be in the Flyers Hall of Fame. Most definitely he's going to get his number raised in the rafters. I just cannot imagine a scenario where that does not happen, right?
Yeah, it's hard to imagine.
So given that,
Mhm.
do they do the Flyers Hall of Fame first or they do the jersey number first? Or how does that work even? Just because some of the classic guys who got their numbers retired, that happened first before the Hall of Fame was invented, right?
Right. Generally, when they think someone's going to be in the Hall, they wait. But I think with Giroux, they won't wait. So I think he'll get the Flyers thing first. Now, that's Flyers Hall of Fame. The number is going to be interesting because, and look, there's a lot of people that don't like the Claude Giroux era because they didn't win. Like, it's
Right.
not his fault. Like, if you're going to blame it on one guy because he was the captain, he was their best player by far. It's really hard to blame it on him. I covered the whole thing. I wouldn't blame it on him. So there's that. And then he's second to Clark in points. He actually has more points than Barber, but he played more games. So it's kind of
Mhm.
like, and then you have Brian Propp. And so, like, Brian Propp doesn't have his number retired, right? So I don't think it's a guarantee that Claude Giroux gets his number retired. I actually think that won't happen right away. So I think the
You
Flyers Hall
think?
of Fame happens right away. I think the other one gets volleyed around a bit, and then the Hall of Fame will get volleyed around.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a doubt with the number retirement thing. I just feel like the way this management is operating, at least if it's this management group, they're going to do it because I think Danny loves Claude. I think that there's, some relationships there that I think,
Relationships, but they're still going to have to talk about winning, and that's going to, be a factor.
yeah, I get it. I also just feel like there needs to be somebody from this era of the Flyers that gets their number up. I feel like you need to do it. And, Lindros covered the 90s, and we need somebody to cover the aughts and the 2010s a little bit.
Right.
And so, yeah, Lindros was like the 90s and the aughts, and then we need like the 10s here, the aughts and 10s era covered somehow to like like almost justify the organization's like that there was some success there, and there was. I don't know that that Claude Giroux was the whole reason for it because some of that success was earlier
Right.
in his career, and Richards and Carter were still on the team when they had some of the bigger successes. But I do think that if you just look at a wide swath of Flyers fans, like all they really know is Claude Giroux. And
No, that's fair.
he's such an impact on the fan base.
I think the problem is I don't think it's going to come from anybody who's in management. I think the problem might come from the older guys. Will those guys say that he's equal to that with them? I think it's easier to say Lindros over Giroux because I don't know, bigger
Yeah,
personality,
I don't know.
bigger. No, I'm going to tell you
That's
why.
the
I'm going to
answer.
tell you why. Bigger personality. The world paid more attention to Eric Lindros than they did Claude Giroux. That's for sure. He was
Well,
bigger.
Lindros was labeled a generational talent, and Giroux was a 22nd overall pick.
Right, but he was bigger in Canada. Like, there's a lot of reasons with Eric Lindros. And the other part is, and this is a big part, his career was cut short. Like,
Yeah.
Claude Giroux's career is not being cut short. So that's another factor where you could look at Lindros and say, okay, if he never had the concussion issues, yeah, he was going to be that generational player. That was pretty obvious. So
Yeah,
that's where I think the
it's
argument is. I'm not saying I'm with that. I'm just giving you the devil's advocate other side.
yeah, I get it. I think, I think this is more an argument for why Brian Propp is, one of the all-time Flyers
Well, this
greats
is right. This is the
if you
problem
look
with
at his numbers,
they
right?
have to correct the
And
Brian problem. If they
right.
correct
And
that, then that might solve other things. But yeah, Brian Propp unfortunately does not get his due in the organization. He just doesn't.
yeah, I think that if you're discussing it in the context of Brian Propp, I think they're two separate things. Like you can say that Brian Propp deserved his number to be retired and have that nothing to do with Claude Giroux and say they both deserve it for different reasons.
No, but a lot of times you do look at players and say, well, if this guy's not, why is that guy gonna?
Yeah.
Give me
I
the
mean,
argument why that guy's gonna.
yeah. And it's different people making that oversight, right? So
Yeah, I
in
mean,
terms
that's
of
true
who's
too.
making those decisions. So that's why I'm trying to think about who's making the decisions in these circumstances as
Right.
part of the conversation. I think it is interesting. Like as far as the Flyers Hall of Fame, total lock. Like there isn't a question there, but the order of operations will be interesting to me. But again, none of this is going to happen until Giroux retires. That's for sure. So this could be a few years out before we're really talking about it for sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right. We have some other options that Russ seems to think maybe sooner rather than later. I hope is later rather than sooner for reasons that will become obvious coming up next.
I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. And now we're in full swing for summer sports like baseball. We absolutely miss hockey, but FanDuel lets me keep sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. FanDuel has odds for Major League Baseball, the Paris games, with over-unders on medal counts by country, soccer, and so much more. I might bet bike racing, by the way. So head over to fanduel.com/locked on and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball.
All right. So, Russ, who is your other top candidate for the Flyers Hall of Fame that you think is sooner rather than later?
Simone Gagne. I think he's overdue. Couple different things. Now, he may not have the gaudy numbers, and that's fine as far as regular season. Uh, Obviously big in the postseason, especially in that Bruins series. My God, he had the biggest goal, but he had a couple of big ones, and he was in crutches earlier in that series. Like,
That's
so
true.
so that's some pretty good heroics there. Here's the big number. You want the big number for Simone Gagne? The Flyers' record with him was 352, 232, 56, 51. That's a pretty good winning record with Simone Gagne in the lineup. So he was a winner. Like he did
Yep.
all he could to get that team to win. And yes, he didn't win a Stanley Cup, but he did and was part of one of the best comebacks in sports history. Like, there's not that many
Well,
teams that
he
have
did win a Stanley Cup, just not with the Flyers.
not with the Flyers. That's what I meant to say. Yes.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I mean, that comeback being down 0-3, that's an amazing thing. That's something you can't take away from a guy. So fan favorite, clutch goal scorer. I think his numbers are good enough, but I think his playoff performance and heroics put him over the top.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think that he's definitely a guy from that era that stands out far and above in a lot of ways and just left an indelible mark on the Flyers organization. You look at his career where he was able to leave the Flyers and come back, which was kind of a trend that happened for a
Yeah,
while, to be
it was.
honest. But he did go off and win a Stanley Cup, and then came back later in his career. Don't like that he played for Boston to end it, but
Yeah.
we'll let that slide for Simone. And I think that if there's anybody from, again, sort of the aughts into the early 2010s, he is another one that's going to be on that list for the Flyers Hall of Fame. Really looking forward to when the Flyers do that, because it's not going to be an if, it's going to be a when. And I think there is an argument to be made that they could do it on the same night as Jake Voracek and have a Flyers Hall of Fame night with the two of them. They could do it separately in different years. Because the problem is, like, I don't know that there's anybody else on the list that are definites, right? At the moment. I think, they made a Wayne Simmons night when he retired. Are they going to bring him back and enter him into the Flyers Hall of Fame? I think
I
it's
don't
very
think so.
possible.
But not
I
right
think
away.
it's possible, not right away, and it's not a lock. I think, but I do think, of anybody else that I'm thinking about right now, he's kind of on that list.
Yes.
But there's there's not a ton of other guys that I think could be on
No.
that list. So they may split it up from between 2 years, so they have a ceremony each
Right.
year. I just don't see anybody else being added to the list for a while, but what do you think? Is there anyone else?
Player-wise, no.
Yeah.
No, I don't think there's any other players.
Yeah.
Not yet.
I just don't think so either. I think we're down the road. So that's why I think that they're gonna split between the two. The other person I see getting into the Flyers Hall of Fame, like, pretty soon or immediately after retirement is Lou Nolan. I think
Yes.
there's precedent for it,
Oh, yeah.
with Gene Hart being on
Mhm.
the list. Lou Nolan is the voice of the Philadelphia
I think
Flyers.
they're gonna wait till he's done or it's his last year.
Well, oh,
That's what I
totally.
yes. But he's gonna get there.
Yeah, I think, are they gonna have, like, a retirement thing for him and then he's in the Hall of Fame the following season?
Yes.
Probably.
Something like that. Yes.
Probably. So whenever he decides to retire, that's what's happening.
And he's the
So,
greatest guy. He
um,
walks around like the mayor. He's fantastic. He's just such a, like,
so friendly.
classy, friendly guy. Just so good.
Yeah. Had a great conversation with him once about a vacation in Italy,
Yeah.
that he did with his wife. He appreciates his off season where he gets to do
Yeah.
stuff like that. I hope he's having a great time right now wherever he is.
He seems like he
And,
always has a good time. I wouldn't worry about Lou.
yeah, and I think that to get yourself on a T-shirt, on a Flyers playoff T-shirt, is
Yeah.
a remarkable accomplishment. Being the PA announcer with that "Stay classy,
It
Philly"
was he turned the right
moment.
phrase. He did
Yeah,
turn the right phrase. So
it was definitely a thing. But I cannot even fathom a Philadelphia Flyers game without hearing his voice. I don't know about you.
yeah, I agree. I mean, he's the guy. I mean, for as long as I've been covering the team, he's been the guy who was there before, well before. Uh, no, he's the most. I mean, look, Jim Jackson is the TV guy.
Hmm.
The next most. I mean, you could even make the argument that even over Jim and anybody else, Tim Saunders, that he's the most recognizable voice, really, because he's the voice in the building. But I think the TV guy carries a little bit more, and then I think it's Lou, and then I think it's Tim.
Yep, I think so. I think so. So, I rue the day that Lou Nolan steps aside. I would like him to do whatever he wants and whatever makes him happy because he deserves it. But
Yes,
I'm going to be very sad when he is no longer the voice of the Flyers in the Wells Fargo Center. And
he'll be
look
sad. He
forward.
loves doing it. Like he loves his job.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So we'll see how that plays out as well. But it should be fun to see what all the specialty nights are coming up this season. And
Yes,
if we do have a Flyers Hall of Fame night, what that could look like. The Flyers will announce that at some point as we approach next season. Looking forward to that. That will do it for today's show. Like I said, tomorrow on the show, we're going to dig into some of the Flyers prospects invited to the World Junior Summer Showcase. We'll have your poll results and so much more. We always want to hear from you as well. So let us know if you have any questions on Twitter at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com or comment over on YouTube. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube that's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Have a great day, everyone.